The grand gala unfolded like a scene from a fairy tale, with shimmering chandeliers casting golden light over the elegantly dressed guests. Laughter and music filled the air, creating an atmosphere of celebration. Yet, amid this splendor, Nathaniel Crowe strode in, a figure cloaked in arrogance. His tailored suit and confident demeanor drew admiration, whispers of his wealth and status rippling through the crowd. But beneath the polished exterior, a storm brewed, unseen by the revelers around him. As Nathaniel surveyed the room, his gaze landed on Tobias, a young waiter. Tobias moved swiftly, balancing trays of hors d'oeuvres, his face a mask of concentration. In that moment, Nathaniel felt a surge of contempt. "Look at him," Nathaniel scoffed, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "He thinks he can serve people like us." Laughter erupted from a group of guests, their eyes twinkling with amusement as they turned to watch the scene unfold. Tobias paused, his heart racing. He felt the weight of their gazes, a mixture of pity and disdain. "I'm just doing my job," he muttered under his breath, trying to shake off the sting of Nathaniel's words. But Nathaniel was relentless. "Job?" he echoed, stepping closer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "More like a servant's role in a play. You should know your place." The laughter grew louder, a cruel symphony that filled Tobias with a sense of humiliation. Around them, other staff members exchanged glances, their faces tight with anger. They had seen this before, Nathaniel's need to belittle those who served him. It was a game he played, and tonight, Tobias was merely a pawn. The air thickened with tension, a silent agreement hanging among the witnesses. They felt the injustice, but what could they do? They were just waiters, after all. Inside Nathaniel's mind, a different battle raged. He was the center of attention, yet he felt like a ghost, haunted by shadows of his past. Memories flickered like candlelight, his father's harsh words, the weight of expectations that pressed down on him. "You will be great," his father had said, but greatness comes at a cost. The cost had been his happiness, buried beneath layers of pride and arrogance. The laughter surrounding him faded into a dull roar as he grappled with the emptiness within. "Why can't they see me?" Nathaniel thought, frustration bubbling beneath his composed facade. "Why can't they understand?" He had built this life, crafted this identity, but it felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. In his heart, he longed for connection, yet he pushed people away, terrified of being seen for who he truly was. As Tobias turned to leave, a flicker of defiance sparked within him. He had dreams beyond serving tables and cleaning up after the rich. He yearned to be an artist, to paint the world as he saw it, vibrant and full of life. But tonight, those dreams felt distant, overshadowed by Nathaniel's cruelty. "I won't let him do this to me," he whispered, determination setting in. A plan began to form in his mind, fueled by the anger that simmered among the other staff members. The gala continued, a swirl of laughter and clinking glasses, yet a subtle shift had occurred. Tobias's quiet resolve mirrored the unspoken thoughts of those around him. They were tired of being treated like invisible shadows in Nathaniel's world. The laughter that once rang out became a backdrop to their growing unity, a silent promise to stand together against the weight of one man's arrogance. As the evening wore on, Nathaniel raised a glass, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. He was a king in his own mind, yet he had no idea that his kingdom was crumbling, built on the backs of those he deemed lesser. Would he ever realize the truth? Would he ever understand the pain he caused? The questions hung in the air, lingering like the last notes of a haunting melody, waiting for an answer that might change everything. The grand gala faded into the background as Nathaniel Crowe's mind slipped back to his childhood. Memories flooded his thoughts, each one sharp and biting, forcing him to relive moments that shaped his very being. He saw himself as a young boy, standing in a large, dark room filled with the cold air of expectation. His father, a stern figure, loomed over him, his face set in a mask of disappointment. "Nathaniel, you must do better," his father would say, his voice deep and unforgiving. "You cannot fail me, not now." Little Nathaniel felt the weight of those words pressing down on him. He remembered how he would practice for hours, trying to impress a man who seemed impossible to please. Each attempt felt like a step deeper into a pit of despair. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" his father would often ask, dismissing Nathaniel's efforts as if they were nothing. In these memories, Nathaniel was not just a boy. He was a prisoner of his father's harsh love. There were no warm embraces, no kind words, only a constant need to prove himself. The laughter of his peers felt foreign to him as he struggled to find joy in a world that seemed to only celebrate success. Meanwhile, across town, Tobias stood in his tiny apartment, surrounded by sketches and paints. The young waiter dreamed of becoming an artist, his heart filled with color and passion. As he recalled his own struggles, he felt a sense of hope. "Art is my escape," he often told himself, sketching images of what he longed to create. "One day, I will show the world my vision." Yet, Tobias also felt the sting of Nathaniel's arrogance. The way Nathaniel had humiliated him at the gala still echoed in his mind. "I won't let him keep me down," Tobias vowed one evening, staring at his unfinished canvas. "I have a voice, and I will use it." The contrast between Nathaniel's bleak memories and Tobias's vibrant dreams was stark. Nathaniel's past was a labyrinth of pain, while Tobias's future shimmered with possibility. The two young men were bound by their struggles, though one was trapped in a gilded cage and the other was fighting to break free. As the days passed, the tension among the staff grew. They exchanged glances filled with unspoken words, their shared experiences weighing heavy in the air. One night, as they gathered in the break room, Tobias spoke up. "We need to talk about what Nathaniel did. We can't let him treat us like this anymore." The others nodded, their faces a mix of fear and determination. "But what can we do?" a fellow waiter asked, his voice trembling. "He's powerful. We are just waiters." Tobias straightened his back, feeling a fire ignite within him. "We have each other. Together we can stand up to him. We need to show him that his actions have consequences. It's time to reclaim our dignity." "But what if he retaliates?" another voice chimed in. "He has the power to ruin us." Tobias took a deep breath, his heart racing. "I understand the risk, but we can't let fear hold us back. We deserve respect. We have to speak out." The group fell silent, considering Tobias's words. Slowly, they began to share their own stories of humiliation and pain, each tale weaving a tapestry of shared hurt. The more they talked, the stronger their bond became. They found strength in their unity, and with that strength came the courage to act. As the night wore on, a plan began to form. They would confront Nathaniel together, standing as one against the tide of his arrogance. "Let's do this," Tobias declared, his voice steady. "We will not be silenced any longer." With renewed determination, the staff left the break room, each of them aware that they were on the brink of something significant. They might have been mere waiters in Nathaniel's eyes, but together they were a force to be reckoned with. In that moment, Tobias felt a surge of hope. Change was coming, and he was ready to be part of it. The staff gathered in a small, dimly lit break room, their faces shadowed by the flickering fluorescent lights. The air was thick with a mix of anger and fear, but also a sense of purpose. Tobias stood at the front of the group, his heart racing as he looked at his colleagues. They had all felt the sting of Nathaniel Crow's arrogance, and now it was time to speak up. "Listen," Tobias began, his voice steady despite the nervousness inside him. "We can't ignore this anymore. Nathaniel thinks he can treat us however he wants because he has money, but we are not just his servants. We deserve respect." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Maria, a waitress with kind eyes, nodded emphatically. "He humiliated me in front of all those guests last week. I felt so small. We need to show him that his actions have consequences." "Yes, we have to make him see how he affects us," Javier, a young busboy, added. His face was flushed with passion. "We're not just here to serve him. We have our own lives, our own dreams." Tobias felt a surge of hope at their words. This was what he had envisioned, a united front against Nathaniel's cruelty. What if we confront him, not out of anger, but to make him understand? We can share our stories with him. Are you sure that will work? Maria asked, her brow furrowed. He seems so set in his ways. What if he just brushes us off? We have to try, Tobias replied, determination lighting his eyes. If we approach him together, he won't be able to ignore us. He needs to hear us. We all have our own experiences with him. It might just wake him up. The room fell silent as they pondered Tobias's words. The weight of their shared pain hung in the air, but so did the possibility of change. Little by little, the staff began to share their stories, each one revealing a piece of their struggle under Nathaniel's disdainful gaze. Maria spoke first, her voice trembling but strong. Last month, he laughed at me during an event when I accidentally spilled a drink. I was so embarrassed. I wanted to disappear. Javier followed, his hands clenched in anger. He acts like he's better than us. He doesn't see how hard we work. I want him to know that we are people, not just shadows in his life. As the stories flowed, the atmosphere shifted. They were no longer just a group of employees feeling powerless. They were a community, bonded by their shared experiences and the desire for respect. Tobias could see the fire in their eyes grow brighter as they spoke. After a while, they began to craft a plan. We could choose a day when he has a big event, Tobias suggested. That way, he will be surrounded by people. It will make our voices stronger. Yes, Maria exclaimed, her excitement contagious. If we stand together, he won't be able to ignore us. As they discussed the details, a sense of unity blossomed among them. They decided to write down their stories, each one a reflection of the pain Nathaniel had caused. This would be their weapon, not for revenge, but for awakening. Meanwhile, in his opulent home, Nathaniel sat in silence. He was surrounded by wealth, but he felt an emptiness that echoed through the vast halls. He looked out the window at the city lights, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond his walls. His arrogance had built a fortress around him, but little did he know that the walls were beginning to crack. Back in the break room, Tobias took a deep breath, looking around at the faces of his co-workers. We are stronger together. We can do this. Let's show Nathaniel that we are not afraid to speak out. With newfound resolve, they all nodded, ready to take the first step towards change. The gathering storm was not about revenge. It was about reclaiming their dignity and making Nathaniel realize that his actions have consequences. Each of them held a piece of the truth, and together, they would finally make it known. One night, Nathaniel Crow wandered through his expansive home, feeling an emptiness that seemed to echo in the lavish halls. The opulence surrounding him felt cold and unwelcoming. As he strolled past the grand piano and the glittering chandeliers, his gaze fell upon an old, dusty chest in the corner of the study. Curiosity piqued, he approached it, his fingers brushing over the leather surface, worn but still sturdy. With a gentle tug, the chest creaked open, revealing an assortment of forgotten items. Among them lay a tattered diary, its cover faded and edges frayed. Nathaniel hesitated for a moment before picking it up, a sense of unease washing over him. He was not one for nostalgia, but something compelled him to open it. As he flipped through the pages, he discovered his father's handwriting, scrawled in a hurried manner. The words spoke of struggles, fears, and loneliness. Nathaniel's heart raced as he read his father's thoughts. "I feel trapped in a world that demands perfection," one entry declared. "No matter how hard I try, I cannot seem to please anyone. I fear I will always be alone." Nathaniel's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen his father express such vulnerability. "I thought he was strong," he muttered to himself, his voice low and shaky. "I thought he had it all figured out." The diary recounted moments of doubt, of a man who felt overshadowed by unreachable expectations. Nathaniel felt a strange connection to these words. "He was just like me," he whispered, realizing that the arrogance he had worn as armor was a reflection of his father's own struggles. He never found peace, and neither have I. As he continued to read, Nathaniel's mind flooded with memories of his childhood, moments where he had tried so hard to gain his father's approval, but had only received criticism. "You must be better, Nathaniel," his father had said time and again. "Success is the only path to worthiness." Each phrase echoed now with a painful clarity. Tears began to well up in Nathaniel's eyes, blurring the ink on the pages. For the first time, he felt the weight of the legacy he had inherited. "I don't want to be like him," he confessed, his voice breaking. "I don't want to pass this pain on." Putting the diary down, Nathaniel sat back in his chair, overwhelmed. He thought about Tobias and the other staff members he had mistreated. He remembered the hurt in their eyes, the whispers that followed him like shadows. "What have I done?" he asked the empty room, feeling the walls close in around him. In that moment of vulnerability, Nathaniel understood that he had to confront his own demons. He could no longer hide behind arrogance and wealth. "I need to change," he said aloud, determination rising within him. "I cannot keep living this way." He stood up, pacing the room as thoughts raced through his mind. "I must apologize," he murmured, gripping the edge of the desk tightly. "But how? What if they don't forgive me?" Doubt lingered like a specter, but deep down, he knew he had to try. Nathaniel took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I have to face them," he resolved, feeling a sense of urgency. "I have to show them that I can be better." He glanced at the diary one last time, its pages filled with his father's struggles. "I won't let your pain define me," he vowed softly. As he left the study, a new resolve fueled his steps. Nathaniel was ready to confront the past, not just his own, but also the legacy he had created for himself. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he understood that to seek redemption, he must first acknowledge the hurt he had caused. In that moment, Nathaniel Crowe felt a flicker of hope, a chance to rewrite his story, to break free from the weight of his heritage. The grand hall sparkled with lights as the new gala commenced. Guests laughed and mingled, their laughter ringing through the air like music. But the atmosphere was different for the staff, especially for Tobias and his fellow workers. They stood together, their hearts racing with a mix of fear and determination. This time, they had decided to confront Nathaniel Crowe. Tobias looked at his friends, their faces filled with resolve. "Tonight is the night," he said, his voice steady. "We have to speak up. He needs to hear us." One of the waitresses, Maria, nodded. "He has hurt so many of us. We can't let him walk away without knowing the truth." As the gala continued, the staff members gathered near the back of the hall, away from the guests. They formed a tight circle, each taking a moment to share their feelings. "I still remember the way he spoke to me during last year's gala," said Daniel, a young bartender. "I felt so small. He treated me like I was nothing." Tobias listened carefully, feeling the weight of each story. "We all have our wounds," he said, "but tonight, we stand together. We have to be brave." When the moment felt right, they walked toward Nathaniel, who was surrounded by guests, enjoying their admiration. The room fell silent as the staff approached, their eyes locked on him. Nathaniel, dressed in his finest suit, turned to face the unexpected group. "What is this?" he asked, his voice dripping with confusion. Tobias stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Mr. Crowe, we need to talk. We can't keep silent any longer." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Talk about what? Can't you see I'm busy?" "You're busy while your actions hurt us every day," Tobias replied, his voice rising with emotion. "You don't see us, do you? You don't understand the pain you cause with your arrogance." The guests looked on, intrigued by this unexpected confrontation. Murmurs spread through the crowd as they began to grasp the tension in the air. "What do you mean?" Nathaniel asked, his tone shifting slightly, curiosity creeping in. Maria stepped forward, her eyes blazing with passion. "You humiliate us, treat us like we are beneath you. We are not just staff. We are people with dreams and feelings. Your words cut deep, and we are tired of it." Nathaniel's expression changed, his arrogance faltering. The laughter of the guests faded, replaced by the weight of their words. He glanced around at the crowd, realizing that he was no longer the center of attention. Instead, he was on trial. Tobias took a deep breath, feeling the support of his friends. "We have all felt your sting, but tonight, we want you to see us. We want you to understand how your actions affect us." Nathaniel shifted uncomfortably, the facade of confidence crumbling. I didn't realize," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't want to realize," Tobias replied, the fire in his heart pushing him forward. "But now you have to. You have to face the truth of your actions." The hall was silent, tension thick in the air. Nathaniel looked around, searching for the scorn he expected, but instead found understanding and solidarity among the staff. For the first time, he felt exposed. A wave of vulnerability washed over him. "I never meant to hurt anyone," he said, his voice trembling. I thought my way was the only way." "You inherited a legacy of pain," Tobias said softly, stepping closer. "But it doesn't have to be your legacy. You can change. You can make amends." Nathaniel's heart raced as he absorbed their words. The realization hit him like a storm, forcing him to confront the shadows he had long avoided. "I want to change," he admitted, his voice full of urgency. "I want to do better." The staff exchanged glances, a flicker of hope igniting among them. This was the moment they had sought, not revenge, but a chance for understanding and healing. As the gala buzzed around them, Nathaniel stood there, stripped of his arrogance, facing the raw truth of his actions. For the first time, he felt the weight of his heritage, not as a burden, but as a call to action. The chapter closed with Nathaniel filled with urgency, eager to redeem himself. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope. After the confrontation at the gala, Nathaniel Crow felt a shift within himself. The weight of the moment lingered in his mind, heavy yet oddly liberating. He knew he had to change, not just for himself, but for those he had hurt. With the sun rising over the city, he decided to reach out to the staff, to understand their stories and the pain he had caused. One afternoon, Nathaniel walked into the cafe where Tobias worked. The clinking of cups and the soft chatter of customers filled the air. Nathaniel's heart raced as he approached the counter, where Tobias stood, wiping down a table. "Tobias," Nathaniel started, his voice trembling slightly. "Can we talk?" Tobias looked up, surprise etched on his face. "You want to talk to me? After everything?" "I know I have been awful," Nathaniel admitted. "I need to understand what you and the others have gone through. I want to listen." Tobias hesitated, unsure if he should accept Nathaniel's request. "Why now? Why do you care?" "Because I don't want to be that person anymore," Nathaniel replied earnestly. "I want to make things right." After a long pause, Tobias nodded. "Okay, but it won't be easy." Nathaniel smiled faintly, relieved. "I wouldn't expect it to be." They chose a quiet corner of the cafe to talk. As they sat, Nathaniel looked at Tobias, trying to see the man behind the waiter's uniform. "Tell me about your experience," he urged gently. Tobias took a deep breath. "It's hard to explain. Every time you walked in, it felt like you brought this dark cloud with you. You'd make jokes at our expense, and it hurt. We worked hard, and yet you treated us like we were nothing." Nathaniel nodded, feeling the weight of Tobias's words. "I see that now. I thought I was better than everyone else. I didn't realize how lonely that made me too." Tobias frowned, but there was a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "You were lonely, but you had everything. Money, status." "Having money doesn't mean I'm happy," Nathaniel replied, his voice softening. "I've been surrounded by people who only care about what I can give them. I never felt real connections." Tobias crossed his arms, reflecting on Nathaniel's honesty. "So, what do you plan to do about it?" "I want to help others. I want to use my wealth for good. I want to support those who struggle, like you," Nathaniel said, determination shining in his eyes. "Will you help me?" Tobias was taken aback. "Help you? Why should I trust you?" "Because I want to change. I want to learn from you and the other staff." "I can't do it alone," Nathaniel explained, his voice steady. "I need your perspective. I want to understand." After another moment of silence, Tobias nodded slowly. "All right, but it will take time. You have a lot to make up for." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes," Nathaniel promised. As they spoke, the atmosphere began to shift. Nathaniel learned about the struggles of the staff, their dreams, and their hopes. Each story added a new layer to his understanding. He started to see them as individuals, not just employees. Over the following weeks, Nathaniel and Tobias met regularly. They discussed ways Nathaniel could give back to the community. Tobias suggested organizing art workshops for young people, allowing them to express themselves creatively. Nathaniel loved the idea and offered to fund the project. "I never thought I'd be doing this," Nathaniel said, excitement brimming in his voice. "I feel like I finally have a purpose." "You're on the right path," Tobias replied with a smile. "Just remember, it's not just about what you can give. It's about being a part of their lives too." As the days turned into weeks, Nathaniel began to change. He became more involved with the staff, asking for their input and genuinely listening to their ideas. He started to build connections, not just with Tobias, but with everyone around him. One evening, as they finished planning the workshop, Nathaniel looked at Tobias with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me," he said sincerely. "I'm learning so much from you." Tobias smiled back, warmth filling his heart. "It's good to see the real you, Nathaniel. Keep this up, and you might just change your legacy." Nathaniel nodded, realizing that true wealth was no longer about money, but the bonds he was forming. His journey of redemption had only just begun, but he felt hopeful for the future. And so, with each passing day, Nathaniel Crow started to redefine himself, not as a man of arrogance, but as a man of compassion, building a new legacy, one connection at a time. Share this story if you believe that redemption can transform even the most hardened hearts. Leave a comment about a time when a simple conversation changed your perspective, and subscribe for more inspiring tales like this one.